Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center, and this is a podcast dedicated to you as owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses to essentially help you find what those things are that you need to be doing to work on your business and get paid what you're worth. It's here that we discuss things related to offering quality services, marketing and selling, training your staff, all those things relevant to building the premier accounting firm in your area. Today, I'm excited to have a guest on the show that I've been looking forward to having for a long time now. Jeff Dredge happens to be CPA, owner of and founder of an accounting business that eventually sold it and has today a number of insights that we're going to be talking about as it relates to his career and what it is to actually have a successful accounting business. So, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Roger. I'm glad to be here today. This is the first time I've done this. But if you ask my wife, I like to talk, so I guess we'll figure this part out.
Okay, good. Well, what we want to do is we want to start with a little bit of context. Share with my audience essentially why it is you got into the accounting profession. Why become an accountant?
Well, frankly, I had no idea what accountants did when I was growing up.
Okay.
But right after high school, I had a mentor, a friend that had a nice house and a Mercedes 450 SL.
All right.
And I lived in Central California, and he said, "Hey, I need you to hand deliver something for me down in L.A." And he gave me his 450 SL with the rag top down, and I drove to L.A. from Central California and delivered it and came back to his house with a pool. And I thought, okay, I want this. How did you get here? And he said, well, I went to school, graduated with a degree in accounting, worked with one of the big firms for a while, then was hired by a client, and eventually ended up in ownership. So, all right, that's what I'm going to do.
I like it. That's very compelling.
Got into school and said, man, I don't really like this accounting stuff. This is hard, but I have the master plan.
All right.
So, anyway, that's how it all started.
So clearly that was convincing enough that you went ahead and pursued it from a career point of view. But there's a difference between getting into accounting and eventually owning a business. Tell us about that evolution.
Frankly, I had been told all through school that if you didn't go with it at that time with a big 8, you were pond scum.
Yep. Okay.
And, I didn't want to be pond scum, but I really struggled with the thought that I could only move up based on tenure, not necessarily quality of work, just for fun. I'd had an offer with one of the big 8 firms. I was with a friend at the placement center, and I saw a small firm that was looking for someone. And I went and met with them, and the individual I interviewed with said the one thing that probably got me to decide to be pond scum, and that was I want someone who will take as much responsibility as fast as they can.
Wow.
And I joke about the pond scum, but it really was, and I believe still today, if you don't go the big firm route, you'll never take advantage of this great education that we're getting you, and we'll lose our ranking. Our school will lose its ranking. You've got to go do that. But
no, it's sad. It's sad that that's how the profession is portrayed, because unfortunately, people presume that in accounting, that's the only path. Yeah. There's so many other people that do very, very well for themselves, offering bookkeeping services, tax services. I mean, there's just a plethora of opportunities, and yet, unfortunately, in the college sphere, they portray it as if it's tax or audit in one of the big 4.
What I've seen in my career since, and when I say something, I don't want it to sound like my observations are the only way. They're my observations, right?
Yeah.
But one of the challenges with going the big firm route is sometimes your learning is so siloed that if you don't stay in it long enough, you haven't learned a breadth of skills.
Yes.
And so I'm actually grateful, based on the evolution of my career, that I went to work for this gentleman. Frankly, within 5 years, I became his partner.
Wow.
And we were able to build what I'll call a successful career. And for me, the reason it was successful is we made a good living, but we had a good quality of life balance.
Okay.
And, it was important to me to spend time with my kids and to serve in the community. And that choice for me allowed me to do these other things that were important in my life.
I love that, because, today a lot of people do look at that life balance and they're trying to actually say, how do I take on this career but not sacrifice everything else that's important to me. So there are people who try to make decisions based on those very things in their career. So I want to go back to this transition to partner. For my listeners, what's the difference between being the employee versus now a partner of a firm? What changes?
You got to make payroll. You got to feed the machine.
Yeah. It's the sales and the marketing side of it. Yes.
And in a small firm especially, you have that push-pull every day of working in the business instead of on your business. And I would say that is one of the greatest struggles that we all have. Because in many cases, people that are attracted to the field prefer sometimes to do the technical work, right? And it's a safe place to go do that.
Well, you're given the work to do.
Yep. But if you want to be successful, you've got to separate yourself from the work, and you got to work on your business. And what's interesting is if you're in advisory, you're using financial statements to help people make decisions all the time. Sometimes the preparers of that information are not good themselves at doing the same things for themselves.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just going to work harder. I'm going to get more billable hours versus focusing on realization or focusing on the sales side of things because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. So would you say a partner, in addition to being responsible for client acquisition, they're also more forward-facing with the clients? They're engaging with the clients, where the accountant that may not be partner may just be involved in doing the accounting work, and there's satisfaction in that, there's work in that, but they may not be client-facing.
Yeah. Many people in the industry are happy being in a room and being given work to do.
Yes.
If you're going to be a partner, you're going to grow a firm, you're going to have to learn those client-facing skills, not just to acquire clients, but in today's world especially, businesses want and need those advisory services. You got to be talking to your clients. And so you can do great work, but if you do great work and email them their financial statements or their tax returns and then never talk with them about what that means because it's uncomfortable to do so, boy, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities to grow your practice.
Yeah. Now, in your firm, I understand that you actually did move beyond compliance work, doing the financials and tax. You actually got involved in the advisory work. Tell us, what was that advisory? How was it defined? How was it actually delivered?
Maybe to put it in some context, when I hate to say this because it really ages me, but when I
I'm the one with the gray hair here, so
yeah, I got some too. It's just not showing. When I went to school, the first time I ever touched a computer was in college, and I still remember in the old computer lab hearing the two floppy drives kind of going as they wrote back and forth.
I remember this.
Right? Desktop computers did not really exist. And so a lot of people that were in this business, they used the old green bar paper, or they would gather boxes of checks and give them to a processing center who would key punch them and then give you the information back. And my experience with the computer in college was, wow, that's probably going somewhere. Maybe we ought to invest in understanding how that could be used in a CPA firm.
Yeah.
And so literally at the time, I was one of the few CPAs that was putting desktop computers on and installing a program in those days called OneWrite Plus, and there was another one called Simon Shoebox. I know you've heard those, and teaching people how to do basic transaction entry and cutting checks. And I'll be honest, in those days, I was one page ahead of them in the book. They'd ask me a question that I have no idea what the answer was, and I would just say, "You're getting ahead of yourself. That's tomorrow's lesson."
Yeah.
But it was a wonderful experience to be on client site, looking at the problems that they were facing, and then trying to use technology to help them solve some of the problems that they were having, whether it be inventory flow or whether it be simply information that they needed to make better decisions. And so my I will say my formative years in the firm were, of course, I did my time doing 1040s on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But I liked people. I loved being on site and with people. And it was a great learning curve for me. They need more than our firm's offering. They don't just need a tax return or a computer system. And my business partner at the time, who's about 10 years older than I am, and just a great mentor and a great man, way smarter than me. We had a client in Battle Mountain, Nevada, and we'd drive out there and to Battle Mountain, and we'd talk about what the clients need. And this is this is 30 years ago, and the determination that we came to was that even though a business is small, it still needs some of the knowledge and experience of a CFO or a CEO.
Yeah.
But they can't afford, nor do they need one full time.
Yeah.
And so, the CAS term wasn't around, none of this advisory stuff were around. And so we started selling our services as, look, you need somebody more to do more than look historical and prepare a tax return. There's hindsight, there's insight, and there's foresight.
Wonderfully said.
Right? And so hindsight is your typical, I prepare financial statements, I give them to you, often with maybe some information about what you did. Insight, you start getting into KPI analysis and what do these financial statements mean and how can I, make better decisions. And then foresight, you start looking forward based on the insight and the foresight to build a plan of where you want to go. And so we started trying to do that. And we started trying to say, meet with our clients on a regular basis or send a monthly write-up. And I'm going to say we liberally, if you were to divide our practice, I was more the go get people set up their systems, clean up their messes, get them good information. And my business partner was just really, really good at the analytical side of what the numbers said. Now I did that some too, all right? But I was too busy out getting the next one to necessarily focus on that ongoing relationship. Well, people loved it. It took accounting services beyond a commodity.
Yes.
Hindsight is a commodity, if that's what you're providing. Mm-hmm. And with any commodity, it's price sensitive and price driven. When you start getting to insight and foresight, you can charge higher fees because there's greater value to what you're providing.
That's wonderfully said.
So,
yeah, one of the things that I think is very important is as a profession, we've seen this transition, and we're both old enough, especially with the history that you were just sharing, to be able to show the evolution of accounting, not from debits and credits, but from, being the green sheets, as you mentioned. Now we went to the computers, then we go to the cloud. Now we're dealing with AI. We're seeing this evolution, but it really comes down to those three elements. One, the hindsight. What are we doing there as it relates to documenting the transactions going on in the business? The insights, what can we take from that information? It's the language of business. What's it telling us about the business? But then it's the foresight. It's really what can we as a professional, now with our crystal ball, say about the business as it relates to cash flow and so forth. Those things are so relevant to the business owner. And until now, I think if you're not offering advisory services, the business owner just doesn't see how what we're doing as a profession applies to their day-to-day business operations. And so we're really, as an accounting profession, evolving here with how we best serve our clients. And this is, I think, very important.
Certainly. And a person that goes into business is often a technician, right?
Uh-huh.
Accounting begins as a necessary evil so that I can do a tax return.
Yes. You're compliant.
Right, you're compliant. If they want to stay in business and they want to grow, they need to recognize that a compliance piece is at least most important. I'm not trying to diminish that work or the value, but if you're not looking at your financial statements and trying to learn to make decisions, it literally is like going to a basketball game and not turning the scoreboard on. I hope we're winning.
Yep, you're running down the court, you're shooting the ball. I think we're doing okay, but you don't know the score.
I don't know what I'm doing. A relationship with a bank. People have a tendency to go to try to get money when they need something in this emergency. I'm not collecting my receivables fast enough, or I'm growing too fast. I need a relationship with a bank. Well, a relationship is just that. It's a relationship, and to just go in when you need money, it's not as effective as if you recognize, if I have a good tool and I'm getting it on a regular basis. And I might even want to go share that information with a bank on a periodic basis to simply say, I'm here and someday I'm going to need you because we're growing. And what I found is that when banks see that people are getting more than Hindsight, they want to work with them.
Yeah.
And so, a measuring tool, a tool for banking relationships, a reporting tool to boards. If you want to get good advice to go forward, right? You've got advisory folks. Well, they want to look at a good tool.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to sell your business, how do you sell your business if you don't have good financial statements to measure what you've done?
Yeah.
And so we tried to be that. And honestly, our limiting factor over the years was finding people who could help us do that. Again, sometimes the profession produces people that want to focus on numbers and not communicating. The thought of talking to people about their businesses is a scary thing. Mm-hmm. And so if I had any advice for someone who's wanting to grow their business, I would simply say, start talking with your clients. They'll ask you questions, and you're going to know more answers than you think. And that's the beginning of advisory, is answering those questions and proactively reaching out, proactively communicating. And what you'll find is your ability to do that will grow, your comfort will grow. You'll start looking for tools that'll help provide you more information.
Yeah.
And so, but I would say that in some respects, not much has changed in 30 years in terms of sometimes the profession producing people that are comfortable doing this. So what I'm seeing is there's a lot of talk about CAS, computer, right? Client Accounting Service. There's a lot of talk about KPIs and analysis, and boy, you can KPI and analysis people to death.
Oh, yes.
Right? And AI, right? It's all the rage. And there's some wonderful tools that can make us much more efficient on the production side.
But they're tools.
And they're not going to take over the profession because at the end of the day, when there's a human element to advisory that AI, I just don't believe will ever replace. I understand you. I understand what your goals are. I know that you want to make enough money so that you have a quality of life to spend time with your kids and grandkids. Or I know you want to grow this so that you can sell it someday, or have it be rolled up into a bigger group. That takes a different discussion. That's a different way of running your business and deciding how you're going to spend money. AI doesn't bridge that gap, but it can give you information for those discussions.
Yeah. So you have this transition. I love the insights and the advice that you provided, but let's talk about now the other owner, the other partner wanting to now sell the business. You've had the opportunity to now exit from the business, and I'd like to share some insights from that experience of what you learned and any advice you'd have as to how to properly value the business and know that you're getting a good deal and what that exit looked like. Share with us how that, first of all, how it began as a conversation of saying, I think it's time to exit, because as if I understand it right, it wasn't necessarily your choice to now do it then.
No, this business partner that I mentioned, he's about 10 years older than I am, and he started talking about wanting to retire. And so we started looking around, someone that follow the traditional model. You internally bring someone in, and they buy in, or you merge with another firm, and in that way, that leadership is replaced. We just couldn't find it. Number one, we ran into, in general, there's a lack of, with the baby boomers exiting the market, there's a little bit of a gap in leadership that's been created.
There is.
And in some respects, back to an industry full of individuals that would maybe sometimes prefer to play with numbers rather than people. And so we were struggling with what to do. And someone approached us from the group that ended up acquiring us about this process of being acquired. And I'll be honest, I was busy. I wasn't really interested in doing it. And so I let my partner do most of the negotiations and being involved in that.
Okay.
To the point, as it got nearer to closing, the owner of the group that acquired us came and said, Jeff, you don't seem too thrilled about it. And I said, well, I think the problem for me is, other than my wife, no one's told me what to do for 30 some years. And
yeah.
I'm not real thrilled about going into an environment where I'm now being micromanaged.
Yeah.
And this gentleman, Reyes Flores, he said, we're not going to micromanage you. You've built a successful firm. You've been around. You've got a lot of knowledge that we want to take advantage of. So if you'll come in, and they asked me to do a specific thing when I came in, and do this for you, we'll let you run. And so, at that point, I guess I had a little bit of an attitude adjustment, and have since been, really grateful for what went down.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's talk about the valuation. I'm always curious. When you're looking to sell the business, you've got a third party coming in, and they're actually assessing whether or not you have what they're interested in and what dollar amount they're going to put on that business. You have to come up also with what you're asking for. So I'm curious, from your perspective, how did you determine what you felt the company was worth that you were willing to say, this is what we're willing to entertain?
We're trying to maximize our turn, right?
Uh-huh.
What's the best multiple of EBITDA that we can get?
Okay.
Right? On their side, they're looking at how many of your clients are we going to be able to keep if we do this? What revenue are they generating? And so you might be billing, $3 million. The moment you walk out the door is what percentage of that's going to go away?
Yeah, there's a risk there.
There's a risk there. And so at the end of the day, because our client base was, I'm going to say, less tax-centric. It was more advisory-centric. We did fixed price agreements where we included the accounting work that we were doing. So the Hindsight, the Insight, the Foresight, at whatever level they wanted, tax projections and the tax return were all bundled into that. And then we would do, the tax returns for the owners. And, the tax work just has a tendency to grow, right?
Yeah.
But what interested in them was if we're able to retain the accounting, it's all these other services are tied in. Mm-hmm. And they felt that they were more likely to keep the client.
Yeah.
And then we signed agreements where we would stay on for a minimum of 3 years.
Okay.
And with my partner who wanted to retire, transitioning out,
uh-huh.
and then myself taking on a more substantial role in the overall organization that acquired us. And so at the end of the day, it was, I'm going to say, what are you billing? What are your annual billings? And what is the quality, and I'll say the stickiness
yep.
of those clients?
Yeah. So let me add a few things here, and I'm curious if you have any thoughts as it relates to what I'm going to share. There are three things that I've found that are very relevant to the pricing or valuation of the accounting business. One happens to be the client list, as you've been mentioning. It's the stickiness. It's whether or not they are dealing with customers or clients. Clients being recurring revenue, such as accounting clients, bookkeeping clients that have an engagement that month after month isn't being renegotiated. It's just being paid. The tax client, great. There's tax revenue in there, but it's more of a customer. It's somebody that each year is coming back. Now, if you're offering advisory services, that's more compelling. But if it's just a single transaction as it relates to a tax return, that's just that customer relation. But you're evaluating where that revenue is coming from. Is it coming from recurring revenue? That's this relationship that we're hoping is going to retain in absence of the owners, or is it something like a tax return that they're maybe indifferent to coming back? And so your quality of client does play into the revenue, right? Second question is the staff. We're looking at the employees. When the owner leaves, how many of these people are going to stick around? We're looking at not only are there key players in the organization and whether or not they're going to stay, but are they ones that we can expect that they'll do well and that they'll actually be involved and so forth. So there's that employee component, because when you buy the business and you get the clients, you'd like to think you retain the people to do the work. The third happens to be the standard operating procedures. Is this a business that has processes, systems that we're able to expect to continue working, or is it in everyone's heads and nobody knows what everyone's doing and it could just walk out the door and we don't have access to it?
Do you have a practice management program, and are you using it as a tool?
And so if I'm able to look in your business and see, wow, you've got engagements that are recurring revenue, I've got employees that want to stick around, and I've got standard operating procedures and systems that are retainable. This is a business that when the owner leaves and exit, the company doesn't dissolve. It sticks around. And so anything that in there can eliminate those risks or bring in those assets, create either a greater valuation or a lesser valuation based on the risks involved with those three categories. Is there anything more you would add than those three categories?
That sums it up well.
Okay.
But I'm going to say that I believe of all of those things, the employees are important. I mean, that's foundation. If you can't get the work done by quality people, if you can't get it done efficiency because you don't have good internal controls and you're not measuring what you're doing, those are all value. But I believe that the greatest valuation piece is that if you're providing a holistic solution, you're going to retain your clients. You're not going to go anywhere, because frankly, it's not happening consistently in the market where that's happening. There's still a lot of tax preparers, and again, there's a lot of money to be made in that.
Of course,
right?
there is. Yes.
There are a lot of bookkeeping services out there, but to be able to pull that all together and say, I can give you timely, accurate information by which you can manage your business, and I can help you to understand what that means and be there when you call, and not nickel and dime you because we've got a fixed price agreement and we want to talk. We don't want you to not call us because you don't want to pay $25 because I asked you how your cat was doing, right?
Yes.
That bundle is of more value as you go to sell the practice.
Yeah.
It's been interesting because we weren't a super early acquisition, but we were a little bit different. To this point, the firms that had been acquired were tax shops, pure tax shops.
Okay.
And frankly, most of them did not have the view that I've described. Their desire was to get a financial statement so we can stack it deep and sell it cheap and get that tax return out the door. And again, not being critical.
Yeah.
Money to be made there. And then they acquired us. And where we were kind of different was, to this point, they'd bought firms where their expectation is, let's let the former owner partners, they're expensive. Let's keep them around through the transition, make sure clients stick, and then send them on their way. We'll bring in a director to the office and lower price, maybe a little bit younger, more willing to make changes to processes and systems, and then they bought us, and I was the first time for them, and this is what they told me, not my own assumption, that they brought in someone that was a little younger that had some legs under them and wanted to stay around. What they found was that was of more benefit than chasing off the partners, because you now have one of the people that helped build this sticking around. There's some value in that institutional knowledge. There's some value to having the relationship with the clients. And so since our acquisition, they've bought bigger firms that they've got more folks sticking around. They buy into the vision, and they've got some legs under them and want to run and help it grow and recognize that, wow, we're now leveraged in with this bigger group and have access to greater resources. And so the profile of the firms has really changed. I think when I was acquired, there was 8 firms, smaller firms, and now we're up to 40 and over 1,000 employees across the country. And what's been fun for us, I'm going to say, except for my firm, they didn't do this with my firm. What this group, this funded by private equity group, is doing is they're going in, they're assessing the things that we just talked about in the value of the firm. They're buying the firm, but rather than try to build a big corporate firm, they're trying to leave a boutique-natured firm in place.
Okay.
You've got a certain look and feel in San Antonio versus Maryland versus New York, right? And they want to leave that in place and then take care of the back office accounting. But what's been interesting to see is even with these bigger firms, in some place multi-office firms that are doing high-end, tax consulting and they're doing audits and reviews, many of them still miss the piece of the blocking and tackling and being able to produce timely, accurate financial statements. And thus, where my firm was treated different, because we were advisory based, because we understood through my experience of installing software systems for a good part of my career, how to make the sausage, so to speak. We were tasked with building a central CAS team to provide those types of services to these firms across the country. So now I have a global view, not just of the Salt Lake area of what's going on in the market, but I've seen what's going on all across the country in these different offices. And let me tell you, there is so much need for bookkeepers and accountants who can produce timely, accurate financial statements and get them in these people's hands. One of the biggest complaints that I hear is that, oh my goodness, we're so glad to know that we have access to a team that can do this. The bookkeepers in our area, they do a horrible job. They don't understand accrual accounting. They don't produce things in a timely basis. And most of the time, these auditors and the tax folks, they want to be able to do tax projections, but they're not necessarily trying to provide CAS type advisory services. So if you can do that, if you can produce timely, accurate financial statements, and you can help a client understand what they mean, even if you don't do tax, there are firms all over the place that are dying to have access to someone like you.
Yeah, what you're describing there, I think, is very important for us as an accounting profession to realize, is that there are distinctive needs that businesses have as it relates to bookkeeping services.
Yep.
And bookkeeping is entirely different than accounting. Accounting is entirely different than CFO and advisory. And then on the tax side, tax preparation is entirely different than tax advisory or tax planning services. So we have to realize that as an accounting profession, that when we say we offer accounting services, the business owner hears what they want to hear. They assume that if you're doing my tax preparation, clearly you have my best interest in heart as to my tax advisory, and you're helping me avoid my tax liabilities and saving me money. But if that's the fallacy. If you're not offering tax advisory services, then you're not advising me on how to legally limit my tax exposure. You're just preparing the return and filing it. And so these services, what we fail to do as a profession is clearly communicate what we do, how they benefit, and help manage the expectations of our clients as to what they can expect from the services we're offering, because bookkeeping services is not advisory services.
Right now, what I'm doing, we're calling it a roadshow, and and we're going to all these firms across the country, and we're talking about what CAS can do for them, but we're having to go back to the very foundation of what you just said. We literally have a slide in our slide deck that says, we need to identify what your understanding of this is. And we literally say, Tier 1, bookkeeping. These are what a bookkeeper typically does. Tier 2, accounting. Accounting, we're taking this bookkeeping data and adding accruals and prepaids. We start getting into more complex accounting for construction or inventory. And so, if you look at the bookkeeping, and I don't mean this in a denigrating way, we have teams of people that do this, but who can do the blocking and tackling of getting cash reconciled, credit cards reconciled,
of course.
Bank, that stuff done. That's wonderful, but it's not necessarily a tool that can be used upstream for the advisory, because we got to add that accrual piece before it's a real tool, right?
Well, let me even add to this. The financials, the timely and accurate, that's exactly what you said. The timely and accurate numbers that make up the financials are what are used to do the accounting. So if you don't have timely and accurate numbers, the bookkeeping inhibits our ability to do the accounting. So that's how essential the bookkeeping is. And so that's where that heavy lifting is going on. And that's where we have to actually trust that there are capable and competent bookkeepers doing their work. They're essential to this whole process. How many times do we want to go in and give great advisory services, but the financials don't even exist to offer any advisory services? That's the problem, is it begins with those terms.
One of the things that would help in our industry is if we were less tribal and recognized that we can help each other all make money.
Of course.
So if let's say you got a bookkeeping firm, and you like to do those blocking and tackling things. I just get so happy when cash comes out at zero, right?
And the balance sheet balances.
And the balance sheet balances. But you don't necessarily feel like at this time you've got the skill set to step in and do some of the more complex accounting. These firms need someone who can do that bookkeeping, and then the firm doesn't have to staff as many people if they get good numbers to, I'm going to say, step up to the more complex accounting.
Mm-hmm.
And so to develop a relationship that says, look, let's work together. Let's both make money.
Oh, yes.
Let's give the client what they need. Take care of the bookkeeping. Hand me timely. Hand me accurate, right?
Yes.
We'll take it to accrual, and then we can advise. And then the firm that's been doing the bookkeeping, as they continue their education, they can move up and start taking on bigger chunks of that accounting, right?
Yes.
But there always is going to be a market for the bookkeeping work to be handed in to people that need accounting done.
Yes. And as it relates to tax, the same thing's true. Yeah. You can have very competent, very professional, and more importantly, very successful, profitable tax preparation firms. They're not doing any planning or advisory services. Yep. There's plenty to be done on the advisory side where you're actually interacting with the client throughout the course of the year and finding legal ways to mitigate their tax liability. Well, that's, again, not tax preparation. And so the two working together can collaborate and take care of the client. And that's where I think, I at least this is what I'm hearing you say, is as an accounting profession, we need to be doing a much better job collaborating amongst ourselves to actually better service our clients.
It's just historically, Ben, you're not going to look at my client because you might steal him, right? And when I was installing accounting software, I would simply say in my mind, if you refer him to me, I won't steal him. If you don't refer them, I go get them on the open market and I solve their problem.
Yeah.
They're always going to come to me because I've offered something that maybe you're not. And I talk to them how to use your numbers. And so I don't think we need to worry about that. I think what we need to do is focus on what we do and making ourselves the highest and best at that. Recognize what we don't do and collaborate.
There you go.
But continue to grow. Right?
Yep.
And expand. And I tell you, there is so much demand out there. There is so much demand. And so I think what happens sometimes is you get a bookkeeper and that scares them. They go to the conference, they hear about CAS, they hear about advisory, and it's just scary.
Yeah. Well, the easiest answer I can offer there is when offering accounting services and the client asks for something and you don't offer it, you need to be in a position where you can say, because of the collaborations you have, I have an associate who does that. There's the answer right there. And if you collaborated with all these other accounting professions, you're able to say, you know what, I actually have an associate that specializes in that area. Cost segregation, let's say tax resolutions. I mean, you don't have to actually have all of the boutique services made up in your firm. You can actually service them through other collaborations that you have. So this is a great conversation. I'm really appreciating this. So I'm going to change gears on this. Okay. I want to get to a little bit more of a personal side of things. You sell the business. What changed from owning the business as you did and the acquisition as it happened? What changed? What changed for you personally? Because you were worried about being micromanaged. You were told by Reyes that you wouldn't be micromanaged. What changed?
I didn't have to worry about the day-to-day operations of the business. I could, for the first time, focus more on the delivery of our product and less on making sure that AP was done and payroll was done and that bills went out. Having that gone was wonderful. And so it's allowed me to focus more on people and training, making sure that they understand their jobs. And frankly, I've spent the last 5 years trying to figure out this model of, all right, I mean, we're a platform accounting group, and we literally look at this as a platform that we can access these resources across the country. Mm-hmm. We've bought shops that do specialty tax. We've bought shops that do specialty accounting. We bought shops that do cost seg studies, and we've got this CAS, and so. But how do you deliver that to these firms that have been acquired and still maybe have a little bit of this? I'm not going to let somebody touch my clients because they may screw up and make me look bad, right? And so how to crack that nut. And so for me personally, I was able to let go of the overhead type stuff and focus on a business model.
Okay.
And it's just been a ride. I've loved it.
I love it. Earlier on, you mentioned that one of the things that was very important to you as you were running your business, in fact, why you went with the firm you did out of school, is you were looking for a way to still be involved in the community, be involved with your children's lives, be part of the family, and not be consumed by the work. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what is it that you find has allowed you to kind of recharge yourself, a hobby, an interest? What have you found that's helped you kind of stay Jeff?
I love the outdoors.
Okay.
And so for me to step outdoors and do anything recharges my batteries. I've spent a lot of time over the course of my life working with kids, whether it's coaching football or people that aren't in Utah may not know what this is, but there's a sport called canyoneering where you go to southern Utah and you chuck a rope off into these slot canyons and you drop down and you hope you can get out.
Down. Yep.
Yeah, hope you can get out. I've taken thousands of kids out into the deserts of southern Utah and tried to teach them to face something that's hard and recognize that even if they don't like what they just did, they face something hard. And if they'll take that principle and apply it to other things in their life, they're going to grow and do better. And so, I've been a scoutmaster, and I've served on the city council and on the planning and zoning, but for me, being out in nature, sometimes on the edge of death, because that's what mountain biking is, isn't it?
Yes.
It's any second you're going to go down, and doing those kind of things. For me, it sharpens a saw, and sometimes in our profession, because of the timelines we're on, we don't sharpen the saw. We don't get out and remember why we're doing what we're doing. And so for me, being Jeff, it's stepping outside, often dragging other people with me abuse.
All right.
And
That's
does that for
perfectly
me.
fine. Yeah. Now, as it relates to your family, you're very ambitious. You've grown a great business. You're still very active in business. What do you hope your children have learned from watching you go out and be successful in your career?
You know, one of my sons actually works for me.
Okay.
And it was very interesting when we first were acquired. I said to him, you know, you're going to be viewed as daddy's boy until you prove yourself. So frankly, I'm going to stick you in situations where it's obvious you're not under daddy's protection and you're going to sink or swim. And I think that's a type of what my kids have learned from me. My kids, I believe, if you were to ask them, have learned to work hard, keep your commitments, be a person of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Have fun while you're doing that, but learn to stand on your own. And to me, a job as a parent is to teach your kids to stand on their own, and face what comes at them.
Yeah.
And that's how we grow. You know, I've had 5 kids, and it's been fun watching them then go out into the world with a little bit of this independent, well, I can do it because Dad's put me in hard spots. You know, I mean, I drag my kids along when I go do these hard things. I mean, I have a grandson who he started canyoneering with me when he was 1. So we're rappelling off 200-foot cliffs into these holes in the earth, and he's hanging from me in a harness. And by the time he was 8, he could teach adults how to do it because put him in the situation. So
Yeah.
I when I say put my kids and our grandkids into situations where it forces them to grow, there's a lot of negative going on in the world. But I don't think people in general are that way. I think people are kind and they want to help each other, and they want to they look for the best. But in the world, it requires us to get up when we get knocked down.
Yeah.
And business knocks you down. And sometimes it knocks you down because maybe you haven't adapted fast enough. You've stayed in this historical hindsight world, and you're not getting new clients because you haven't adapted.
Yeah.
Well, we're never down too long. Recognize, get up. I mean, I think what you're providing, and this is a shameless plug that he did not ask me for this. What you're doing is a great tool to give people the ability, the resources, and maybe the insight to step up when things aren't going as well in their business side of things.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this is intended to be something like that, and I appreciate that. So in that context, there's many of my listeners that I'm sure would appreciate just your perspective. Having been acquired, what should they be aware of if they were to be approached to sell their business? You've got this private equity approach that's becoming more and more common as it's trickling down through the accounting profession. What should someone who's offered or entertaining being purchased consider? What should they be thinking?
Well, I think it depends on your mindset and your ability, either yourself adapt to needing to be more than a technician.
Okay.
If your propensity is to stay in the role of a technician, then, boy, being acquired by a bigger firm that offers expanded resources, it's a great opportunity for you. But it's not for everybody. I wouldn't have wanted to do it when I was a young buck. I wanted to prove that I could do it, right? I guess my appreciation for this model has really grown as I've seen, especially in today's world, the need for more and more specialization. We're able to get that. I mean, when I was initially installing software, I'm literally putting people's first computer in their office.
Yeah.
And when we went to the GUI interface where it was a mouse, people couldn't run a mouse. And so I'd have them play free cell.
Okay, yeah.
Or solitaire to learn how
to
use the mouse. And then along comes these, peer-to-peer networks. Well, I figured out how to do that. And so over the course of my career, I got to be dangerous with technology, enough to be dangerous. Well, I would not even come close to trying to do that in today's world. You need, when it comes to technology, you need a specialty in almost every piece of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the same thing's becoming true in accounting. It's hard to be a generalist and offer these services from soup to nuts. And you could drive yourself crazy if it's not your natural proclivity, right, to do it because you don't want to talk to people, or you're so busy that you don't have time to. So you solve that problem by hiring or bringing in other partners, right, that perhaps have those skill sets. In the market today, and it'll correct itself, and I'll go back to, and then, again, my opinion, the market's having to correct itself with the boomers retiring and a lot of historical leadership leaving.
Yeah.
This is a great opportunity with these acquisitions to bolster some of those other skills that you might not be able to find, provide some leadership in areas that you might not be able to provide, and find yourself maybe more enjoying going to work because you're not feeling the burden of, I'm behind.
Yeah.
I'm not technically competent in this area.
Yeah. Very good. What's a question that you thought I would ask that I haven't asked yet?
Whether I was a cougar or a ute, I mean, that's a local.
So which is it then?
I'm a cougar.
You're a cougar. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Here's a question that I get to now allow you to kind of dictate where we're going to go next. For the next topic, I'm going to let you pick. And you can pick actually anything, but I'm going to offer you 4 and you decide. As to your success and so forth, would you say faith is something that you would like to discuss, music, family, or work-life balance?
I guess I would say work-life balance.
Okay, let's talk about that.
And faith and family are very important to me.
Okay.
But if you don't have a work-life balance, then we sometimes fail at those others because we don't have time.
Okay.
Our priorities are focused on simply work, and so in my personal opinion, if you want to have strong family relationships, if you want to be involved at whatever level in a faith of your choice, you need time and you need some mental clarity to be able to do that. If your mind is always busy, if it's always full, you can't be present in any of those other things.
That's true.
I will say that I feel very fortunate. We didn't make ourselves multimillionaires in our business. When you sell time, and then you decide to give a bunch of away to faith, to community, to kids, you're probably not going to make as much money as someone that puts all their focus in making money. And I don't have one regret at all. I've been able to make a good living. I've been able to serve in the community. I've been able to be there when my kids and now my grandkids are doing things. And when you get to be our age, man, am I certainly glad that I'm not looking back with greater regrets than we have a tendency to do anyway, because all I did was work. Yep.
Very good. I appreciate that advice. That's very good. So I'm now going to ask you some rapid fire type questions, and you just get to pick either or. I'm kind of curious what you're going to say with each of these, okay? You ready?
Yeah.
Introvert or extrovert?
That's an interesting question. And the reason I say it's interesting is that there's no one in this world that knows me that would say that I'm shy,
okay,
or I'm not an extrovert.
Okay.
But I actually derive greater value in putting something together, whether it's a business or whether it's a fun adventure or a trip to Lake Powell, and then sitting back and watching people in those environments have fun or succeed. I don't get my juice from being in the middle of that.
The center of attention.
Yeah, I'll put it together, but I enjoy observing.
All right.
So I don't know what that makes me.
No, that's good. I like that. That's a good answer. All right. Disneyland or Disney World?
Neither. Universal, where they got big roller coasters.
There you go. I like that. Good answer. Okay, good. All right. Read a book or watch a movie?
Wow, 50-50.
Okay. Drive or fly?
Fly.
Breakfast or dinner?
Dinner.
Money or fame?
Neither.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, Star Wars.
Good. All right. So here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to kind of wrap this up, and I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought and just see what last thing you'd like to share with everyone. But for my listeners, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to encourage you to take advantage of a few quick offers that we have for you. Universal Accounting Center has put together what's referred to as the Accountrepreneurs Challenge. This challenge is intended to actually help you work both on your personal and professional worlds so as to help you build the premier accounting firm in your area. I'd like to invite you to participate in this Accountrepreneurs Challenge. It's a 90-day challenge where each week you're given maybe a 5-minute exercise or something to work on, another week an hour-long thing for you to work on. These are both personal and professional. They come to you via email. In order to sign up for the Accountrepreneurs Challenge, I invite you to go to universalaccounting.com, and there in the free resource section of the navigation, select the Accountrepreneurs Challenge. You'll find it, I believe, in step 2 of those free resources. As it relates to the challenge, just sign up for it. As you get the emails, just find a little bit of time in your day to do the 5, 15, 20-minute exercise, or maybe in the week, that 1-hour exercise, so as to actually work on those things that are both personal and professional for you. As it relates to the show itself, I do also want to encourage you, if you haven't already registered, join us for GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. This is a conference where we actually get together to hear from the experts, letting them explain the various things that we need to consider to run our business, whether it be marketing and selling our services to get the clients we deserve. Perhaps it's offering quality accounting services, such like we've discussed today, so as to assist our clients and help them actually understand what it is that they should be doing in their businesses and getting paid what we're worth. Or it's perhaps working on our business itself, being efficient and productive so that we can get paid what we're worth. All these things are intended to be covered at the conference. It's here that you can also, as we've discussed today, collaborate with those individuals who are our peers, those other fellow business owners who are running successful bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses, seeing what it is that they could perhaps provide as it relates to our clients, but at the same time build friendships, connections, and relationships with those individuals who are in fact our peers. Come and join us, visit with my staff, find out those individuals that are actually there to assist you. Why? Because accounting success is universal. So I invite you to actually join us for GrowCon. Now, as a summary of our conversation, there are a few things that I'd like to bring in as a highlight of this. I loved how you were describing earlier that accounting actually has 3 roles. It's the hindsight, it's the insight, and it's the foresight. I thought that was quite profound. I think that's an excellent illustration of what it is we do as an accounting profession. We speak of accounting having the language of business. It's where we actually do this commoditized work of doing the historical and producing the financials, but there's so much more beyond that that we should be able to offer our clients as it relates to what's happening in their business today and advisory as to what it is they can be planning and preparing for to grow their businesses. Excellent way of kind of encapsulating what the accounting profession is and who we are. The other thing that I really appreciated is your perspective as to you being an owner and wanting to actually have that work-life balance that you later brought up. I think that's very important that we understand that there's a hustle and a bustle about starting and building a successful accounting business, but we also have to understand that we have other responsibilities as well. So I thought that was a very important thing to point out. The other thing that I'd like to make mention of is the fact that as you were growing the business, you were able to become partner quite quickly, 5 years, and it was quickly because of not just the focus on the technical side of the work, being that tactician that you were describing, but it was getting into that CAS, what's referred to today as CAS, that advisory type work that basically means that you're more forward thinking with your clients, more engaging with your clients, more involved with your clients. And I think that's something that we should all actually consider as we're looking at the relationships we have with our clients. We spoke of AI, and I think this is a good correlation to it, realizing that it will change how we do work. You spoke at the very beginning of the green sheets. You spoke of putting computers on people's desks invest for the very first time. Well, these are all tools that we use to do the work that we do. Debits and credits haven't changed. They won't change. So as we look at things such as going on the cloud, AI today, these are, again, tools that we're able to embrace and use to do our jobs better, more easily, more effectively, and that efficiency pays off where we're able to service more clients and get paid what we're worth. So I think that in and of itself was a great little topic that we were able to cover. We also spoke of how you recharge yourself, and it was getting out there in the outdoors, working with other individuals. You indicated that you're involved with scouting young men, helping individuals kind of be put in uncomfortable situations and realizing that they do have the means to get out of these uncomfortable situations. Powerful lessons to be learned, and I think that's great that you were able to find time in your career to actually contribute to society and get involved at the community level, where you were actually in the I think you said the city planning and zoning committee and city council. I mean, those are very important things, because we have to understand that we can be all consumed with work, but we have family and we have a community responsibility, and I'm glad you were able to at least speak to that. So thank you for that. So
it just means I'm old. When you've lived a long time.
Well, I'm going to join you. I've done those things too. I haven't been on the city council, but in scouting and so forth, yeah, these are things that I'm proud of, and it's something that I think further rounds out and defines who I am. So I think that's great. So what would you like to leave, Jeff, as a final thought?
Starting and running your own business can be a scary thing. And sometimes we can feel like we're never enough. We're not doing enough. We're not doing good enough. Getting continuing education, going to conferences is very important to stay up on what's going on. But they can also have the net effect of walking away feeling overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
And boy, am I so far behind my neighbor. Let me assure you, you're not. Especially when it comes to this CAS stuff. It truly is, in terms of adoption, that it needs to happen, a fairly new concept. And so have hope that you'll get there. Be patient with yourself. Make a plan and then work that plan, but be willing to pivot as you attend continuing education, as you learn new things. Don't be entrenched in an old way of doing things. I think more than ever in today's world, we cannot be entrenched. We've got to learn to use these tools. Keep the faith, recognizing what you're doing is needed. And as you keep practicing your craft, as you seek continuing education, if by partnering up with people like Roger that are trying to give you more resources, you'll get there. And so don't be discouraged, but also don't sit down and think I've made it. And what you'll find is marginal change over time, and frankly, sometimes marginal steady change is better than a spike and then a drop. And so, but one of the reasons you have hope is there is such a demand for these services. It's underutilized. So if you'll focus on honing your craft, be the best. If you're a bookkeeper, be the best. Seek to be the best. If you don't know, sit down with someone who maybe focuses a little more on that next tier and say, what do I need to do to be able to produce what you need? So hone your craft. But if you'll hone your craft, you'll continue to learn and strive for more. There's no need to fight over market share, because there's plenty. There's more. There's more than enough. So if you'll do that foundational work and then simply talk with your clients, they'll tell you what they want. And then it becomes incumbent on you to deliver that, and then talk to them again, and then talk to them again. And you'll find that relationship will grow. Your ability to communicate and explain complex information will grow. The client will want more services, and they'll be willing to pay for it. And I don't know, that wasn't really very profound, was it, Roger?
No, that was good. I'll take it. That was a good closing thought, so I appreciate it. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. This is good. So everyone, I appreciate you listening. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to have you actually as a listener. We release episodes each and every Wednesday, and it's here that you'll actually being subscribed, be notified of those releases. So I encourage you to take advantage of these different discussions that we're having each and every week to learn from the experts what it is we can do to have the premier accounting firm in our area. Also, as it relates to Universal Accounting, you do want to go to universalaccounting.com to the free resource section to take advantage of that Accountrepreneurs Challenge that I mentioned earlier. At the same time, I invite you to check out the podcast playlist. We've put together the podcast highlights. You'll see in the podcast section of the navigation of the site various things that we've compiled over the last basically 5+ years, more than 300 episodes where we've actually interviewed experts as it relates to marketing, selling, pricing, tech stacks, training staff, mental health, just a variety of topics that you can dive into based on your current situation. Whatever it is you're dealing with right now, there's a playlist that's been compiled to actually give you expert advice in those areas. So I invite you to go to the podcast section of the website, look at the highlights, and there find those playlists that apply to your current situation. Also, as it relates to Universal Accounting Center, I want to invite you to GrowCon. I mentioned it a moment ago. I look forward to seeing you there. Register, get your ticket, go to universalaccounting.com, and in the navigation, you'll find information regarding the conference, all the details you need, and if you haven't bought your ticket, purchase it there. Lastly, as it relates to what we've discussed today, CAS services, getting out there and offering quality accounting, bookkeeping, tax services, find out what you can do to certify your skills, train your staff by going to universalaccountingschool.com. There you'll find information about how you can actually go through a variety of trainings offered by Universal Accounting Center, such as becoming a professional bookkeeper, becoming a professional tax preparer, becoming a profit and growth expert. Each of these programs are designed to certify your skills as accounting professionals in those specific areas so you can offer quality accounting services and get paid what you're worth. Lastly, as it relates to all these discussions, if you'd like more information, feel free to give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, accounting success is universal. Take care, have a great day, and be safe out there.